Today, we're spotlighting an ISSA member company that plays a unique role behind the scenes of the cleaning and facility solutions supply chain. The company serves the industry across markets like janitorial, sanitation, food service, paper, and more, with a nationwide network of distribution centers and a model built on partnership and reliability. What you're about to experience is a conversation, informative, inspirational, all of that when we think of legacy and making a positive difference. It's my pleasure to welcome Ken Schinner, CEO of RJ Schinner. Ken, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you, Jeff.
Tell us about yourself and your family.
Wow, RJ Schinner is, believe it or not, the only job I ever had. In our humble beginnings, my father brought me into our office to let me work in the warehouse, whether that meant I was sweeping floors, helping put product away. Um, I was getting out of my mom's hair. So from a relatively young age, I was really familiar with the family business. Through my schooling years, whether it's high school or into college, I held a variety of positions. Like so many family-owned businesses, I wore a lot of different hats in the organization. Pretty much every office job you could have. When I graduated from college in 1990s, when I got involved with sales with RJ Schinner, and I remained in sales for about 10 or 15 years, then worked my way up as our company grew. We added locations. I got involved in sales management, became vice president of the sales. And then in 2010, roughly, I became our company's president. And then within the last 4 or 5 years, I became our company's CEO. So I've lived in Wisconsin, where we're headquartered, my entire life, still happily here. Um, I have a wonderful wife who has spent some time in our organization as well, so it's very much a family affair. And I have two children that are just now college age and getting out of college. So I represent third generation of a family-owned business here, and the fourth generation is not too far behind.
So let's dig into that a bit because I think that's great. Family businesses, you were there as a young, you didn't mention an age. I don't know how old you were young, you said. Labor laws.
But yeah, child labor laws, I don't think were as enforced back then. And some of the things they had me doing, climbing around racks, probably wouldn't be encouraged today. So let's just say I held a variety of pretty unique jobs while I was working in the warehouse.
So what was that like in those early years? Were you like, I don't want to be here. Where's the playground? Or did you embrace it? What was that like?
Yeah, so I embraced it. A little bit of money helped, and it was a little bit of money. I during so for the summer months, it was a good break for me. I loved every kid that age in my generation loved being outside, playing outside, and so for a few days out of the week, I was able to do that. But I also had a lot of respect for my dad. Of course, my dad was my hero, and a lot of family members worked in our business. So when I went into the business and I worked, I was able to be with not only my father, but with other family members, able to be part of an organization that, quite honestly, I was pretty proud of, a family-owned business with my name on the building. So it was, some days it was a lot of hard work. I worked a lot of times in the warehouse, and my mom would be upset with me because I would come home covered with dust and dirt and grime and everything that warehouse workers are used to after spending a long time in the warehouse. But so it was a labor of love. And my father would give me days off whenever I wanted to go out and do the things that every kid did as well. So it was a great balance for me, Jeff.
Now you alluded to another generation, the fourth, I believe. Do you want to disclose anything there or keep it under wraps?
No, I'm happy to disclose it. One of the things you'll find out in talking with me is we're a very transparent organization. So there is no questions that's off limit. So the fourth generation, yeah, we're happily. Let me take a step back. So I started the third generation. I do have five cousins involved in the business with me that also represent third generation. And fourth generation, as I mentioned, so I have two children that Joe and Rachel, that have spent some time in our organization in the summers as well. They may not have been out in the warehouse climbing around like a monkey on the racks like I was, but they've held office positions. So they're kind of getting their feet wet and putting on those different hats that I mentioned earlier, as far as working with different departments. And in their schooling, they'll find out, what really interests them. We have a lot of needs at RJ Schinner, as we're a much different organization today, with many different departments, almost 700 employees and 21 locations. So there's a lot of opportunity for them to pursue what they find most interesting and where they think they can be of most benefit for our organization. So they're just kind of getting their feet wet now, as they're just graduating from college and just have and the other one has a couple more years left.
So family business and their future, most likely, but they get to kind of find their own way as to what that looks like. That's cool.
Yeah, and as one is studying supply chain management and
Wow.
marketing, it's I think the handwriting's on the wall as to where she wants to work, and we certainly welcome that. We love to keep this. We've been a family-owned business since 1951. Obviously, survived into our third generation. Not survived, flourished into our third generation, and we see no reason in slowing down that trajectory and keeping the family business going.
Fantastic. You mentioned survive. Businesses have to survive, but they also can thrive. So I'd like to do this. Could you pinpoint some key milestones that shaped your company into what it is today? What would those look like?
Absolutely. Well, I mentioned my grandfather started our business in 1951 when he returned from World War II. Um, for wow, roughly 60 years, 2010, we were a relatively modestly sized wholesaler operating out of Wisconsin and then generally in the Midwest. That was a time when you talk about the 90s and the 2000s where our industry looked a lot different. There were independent wholesalers scattered throughout the U.S., including in the Midwest. And for several years, it was really difficult for us to gain traction and grow the way we wanted to do because of the competitive landscape. 2010, since 2010, things have become very interesting for us. So as we all know, the industry has consolidated quite a bit over the last couple of decades. That consolidation happened in wholesale as well. So when we were an upper Midwestern company in 2010, we had the vision of what our company could become. And we wanted to be much larger scale. We wanted to be much more relevant in the industry, and we wanted to become national. But we didn't want to give up our ownership to do that. So we went on a quest. And between 2010 and 2025, we opened up roughly 15 locations throughout the U.S. So today we now operate out of 21 locations in the U.S. We have 2.5 million square feet of space. We have roughly 150 trucks hitting the street every day. We're servicing thousands and thousands of independent distributors throughout the U.S., from the West Coast to the East Coast, from the Canadian border down to the Mexican border. So really what happened is that we've always been very aggressive. When 2010 rolled around in that timeline and we saw the world consolidating, a lot of people become available when companies consolidate. So the world opened up for us because a lot of those independent wholesalers we're competing against back in those days were no longer there. We really kind of took the mantle as an independent family-owned wholesaler, and we've been able to nationalize ourselves. That's really unique to RJ Schinner, and we've been able to do that, funding all of our growth ourselves and maintaining our ownership. So as great people became available, and our aggressive nature, we basically took a model that we utilized from the early days of Wisconsin and the early days of being a Midwestern-based company and applied that model throughout. It's a disciplined model of wholesale, but it's also aggressive, very customer centric. One of the things we're most proud of as our company has scaled up and grown to the entity we are today is that a lot of the principles that guided us, our company culture, being a very lean organization, very customer centric, nimble, taking advantage of opportunities very quickly. That served us very well through a lot of disruptive times that our industry has seen, whether it was the pandemic from several years ago, or like the conflict we're seeing today in the Middle East. There's a lot of disruption that happens in our industry in the supply chain. And that ability to react very quickly and pivot and really diversify what our product offering looks like served us very well, along with our aggressive nature. And, we really been able to thrive. And now we're at a point where we have grown 20 years in a row. Every one of those years we've seen growth, which I'm not sure anybody from a wholesale perspective can match in this industry. And our average growth during that time frame was 10% a year. So it's not just growth, but it's aggressive growth. And we're really proud of that. And we're really proud of the fact that we've been able to keep that culture in place. So any one of our customers can pick up the phone and give me a call. They have access to our ownership. Any supplier we deal with, the same thing. And everybody in our organization takes that mentality. So we're always going to be customer centric. We really want to be lean. We're going to keep our aggressive nature. We love the position that we are in the industry. And the fact that we are national now versus a regional player and the ability to scale up and create some efficiencies and economies of scale, the fact that we globally source product from the best domestic manufacturers. We also have an office in Shanghai that we opened up pre-pandemic, and a lot of the product offerings that we sell, the best sources of supply are overseas, or maybe there just isn't a lot of domestic manufacturing in certain categories because of natural resources, because of regulations, because of labor factors. So between domestic manufacturing here in the US and global sourcing, our product mix has expanded and continues to expand. Our diversity of products and the industries that we service has expanded. And we feel in a lot of ways, we're proud of what we've accomplished, but in a lot of ways, we feel like we're just kind of getting started, to tell you the truth, Jeff.
Great details, Ken. Thank you for that. So you sell your products, you service suppliers. If a supplier, typical supplier were to say, I do business with RJ Schinner because, what do you think they would say? Finish that sentence.
Yeah, that's a great question. And because the distributors that we are servicing vary greatly in their needs, in the industries that we service, and in their size. So some of them gravitate towards very aggressive pricing, right? And I think that's a threshold that you always have to hit, right? You have to keep people awfully competitive, or they'll find somebody. Let's face it, we're in a very large market that is mature, that is highly competitive, and margins are generally fairly modest. So pricing is always going to be important. So I think when our distributor partners look to us as a supplier, there's an expectation we're going to keep you competitive, right? So that has to be there. We have a great sales force. I mentioned through the years of consolidation in the industry, I roughly have roughly about 100 salespeople out on the street right now. I would venture to guess roughly half of them, before they came to work for us, have been involved in the industry, probably from a different wholesaler or from a manufacturer or from a distributor. Very experienced, very knowledgeable. And in a world where we all understand digital, e-commerce, is growing, taking more and more market share, and that's important to us as well. I think that relationship side of the business is extraordinarily important. The ability to provide expertise for our customers. And you mentioned sense of urgency. One of the things I mentioned our company's been very proud of is that we're a lean organization. We make decisions. There is no red tape at RJ Schinner. We empower our salespeople and our teams to make quick decisions with pricing. If a customer needs something, they have all the authority they need. They need to make sure that that customer is taken care of. Where windows of opportunity open and close very quickly. So that sense of urgency that our company has in servicing customers in a very quick manner is very paramount. I would also say this. I mentioned we have 21 locations now around the U.S. and 150 trucks that hit the streets every day. Our ability to reach customers very quickly, oftentimes next day with product. And whether there's always emergencies, there's always fires to put out, right? We have a lot of inventory in those 21 locations across the U.S. Our facilities are positioned where we can reach about 95% of the U.S. population with our own equipment next day. So we can have a truck anywhere pretty much in the U.S. next day on our own equipment. So it's a combination of being aggressive. It's a combination of fantastic representation. It's a combination of having the infrastructure ready to service customers very quickly. And then, of course, other components. Some of our customers will gravitate towards the e-commerce platform, and our website continues to grow more and more with real-time inventory, with customers being able to place orders or just getting product content there. So it's a variety of different things, and I think different distributors will gravitate towards certain aspects of what our value proposition is. But through 75 years of being in business, we think we have our finger on the pulse of what distributor is looking for, of distributors in a variety of different industries, whether it's a broadline food service distributor, a Jan-San distributor, industrial distributor, office products, somebody in the healthcare. We've diversified ourselves enough to understand that there's different needs, different size. A national distributor with 50 locations around the U.S. has a different need than a single entity distributor, right? And we love them all. And one of the great things growing through the years and servicing so many different types of distributors is that we have invested in so many different areas that if you're a distributor and you need product, you need service, and you need aggressive pricing, we feel very adept in providing a lot of value in all those areas.
Ken, when you said that there's no red tape at RJ Schinner and you empower your people to do what they need to do, I bet you got a bunch of applications right then when you said that.
Yeah, I have alluded, I think, once or twice already on this call to our company culture.
Yes.
And the ability to, one of the really important things for our company's growth is the ability to bring in the right people. Certainly on the sales side, but I'm talking about all different departments, right? We have a reputation of not only growth, manufacturers and the industry has taken notice as to who's been growing. And when you have 20 years in a row of doing what we've done, people take
Impressive.
note. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, so word gets around, and I mentioned many of our salespeople had been employed with other wholesalers or manufacturers in the industry. And when we have openings, it's fantastic to get a lot of qualified people that share our vision. Now, there's a lot of moving parts to wholesale, right? We're in the middle between manufacturers and distributors. There can be a lot of disruption in the supply chain, which means work can be pretty tough. You can be caught in the middle of some pretty difficult scenarios, and you might be juggling 5 balls at one time. So you have to like a fast-paced environment,
Hmm.
and you have to be willing to understand the supply side of things, and then getting product into the customer's hands. And we're right in the middle of all that. So our people are very busy, really experienced. So it may not be a perfect fit for everyone, but for those in this industry who know the role of a wholesaler, I think we provide a really attractive option. And the great thing is, as our company has grown, we've onboarded a lot of people through the years, and we plan on growing and continuing to onboard some great talent going forward.
So speaking of growing, this year you're celebrating something.
Yeah, so we're celebrating our 75th year. We're proud of that. I've always been told that by third generation is when third generation usually bankrupts a family-owned business, right? So I'm third generation, and the good news is we've never been more successful than we are today. 75 years and what we've accomplished is something we're really proud of. But as I've alluded to earlier, Jeff, in a lot of ways, we still feel like we're just getting started. We've really only been a national entity now for roughly 7, 8 years. So we have a lot of growing up. We're a little bit behind some of our major competitors as far as operating on a national level. So there are certainly in some of our newer locations, in particular on both coasts. So I mentioned we started in the Midwest. That's where we're still headquartered. It's both the West Coast and the East Coast that we've really been only operating in those facilities anywhere from 5 years to 10 years. So that's not a lot of time, right? So in some of those marketplaces, our market share is not what we'd like it to be, but we're growing fast. So as proud as we are of what we've been able to accomplish and where we're at today, we really feel in a lot of ways we're just getting started.
Growing, substantial company, but still nimble. That's a great mix. I I wonder if we could talk about how you value ISSA as a partner because you've been a member for many years. What are some of the components of ISSA? Maybe the show. You've been to the show. I know that. Maybe there's a good memory there. What would you like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been going to the ISSA conference for several years, and I've attended many of the workshops. I learned a lot. So ISSA, when I think of ISSA, I think of the largest accumulation of relevant industry players that we're associated with. I'm thinking of manufacturers. I'm thinking of distributors, sales rep agencies that we're aligned with. There isn't an organization that we're affiliated with that encompasses more of the strategic alliances that we have. So ISSA, extraordinarily important to us. Um, the conference itself, wow, so much so, as I mentioned, I've been going to that conference for several years, and we typically bring about 20 to 30 people each and every year now. Some of them get in early and are able to attend some of the workshops, which are extraordinarily valuable. And when you take a look at pretty much every topic is covered, right? So it provides some fantastic benchmarking opportunities. Are we doing with what the industry best is doing? What is that standard? So it allows for some great benchmarking. Obviously, a lot of collaboration with the manufacturers we deal with, coordination with manufacturers and the distributors that we're aligned with. And I'll tell you, so we've been exhibiting for a number of years. When we became a national entity 6 or 7 years ago, we really started to put an emphasis on what our exhibit looked like. So it's very substantial now. And as a newly formed national entity, there were a lot of distributors in certain parts of the country that we were new to that didn't know a lot about RJ Schinner. So it really allowed us to showcase our organization, not only to the manufacturer community, but to distributor community, some of which are very familiar with, some of which we're not. And that's still true today. So the show itself, just provides us a fantastic opportunity to show off what RJ Schinner is all about. We can expose our private brands to people. We can let them know the domestic manufacturers we're aligned with. They get to see some of the technology that we're able to do out there for them, some of our marketing capabilities. So it's really eye-opening for both manufacturers and distributors because, again, we're relatively new to the national scene. I think we surprise a lot of people with what our capabilities are, and we become more and more relevant. And ISSA has been a big part of us being able to accomplish that.
Thank you, Ken. Good. Glad to hear it's a great partnership there. And I've been to a lot of shows myself working here at ISSA. I don't know how many I've been to because I went before I worked at ISSA when I had other roles, but I don't know, probably 20 shows. Yeah.
That's
Well,
awesome. Yeah.
thank you for your time today. What did we miss anything you want to talk about? Any final words of advice to close with?
No, I appreciate the time. You know, there's always going to be challenges happening. So it's really important, if I had advice for anyone, and maybe we're in a position, right? The people see a successful model. So maybe how do you, and I do get that question, how do you do? You know, I think there's a lot of paths to success. And we've seen, just when you take a look at the wholesale community and some of our competitors have strengths, right? They're organized a little different. Their ownership looks a little bit different. There's a lot of ways to achieve success. Um, I think what's important for people is you don't have to follow any one particular model, right? You have to have a vision of what your company can become. And this is the type of industry where you have to invest. You have to have that vision. You have to take steps towards it. Success and your vision is not going to find you. You have to go out and you have to get it. And that's the attitude we take. You know, we have a philosophy here at RJ Schinner that if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. There is no standing still, right? You should never be happy. I mentioned 20 plus years of growth each and every year. We're never happy. We're never satisfied. We're always looking at what is the next year? What is the next 3 years? What is the next 5 years hold for us? And we have a vision of our company that's different than what our company looks like today. And that's what I would recommend to people is have a vision and don't be afraid to invest. There's going to take some sacrifice. It's going to take some time. It's very much the kind of industry that you get out of it what you put into it. If you're willing to work hard, it's there for you. And that would be my advice to any company out there.